Dr. Megan Woods.
Thank you. I'd actually like to give a 10-minute response, Mr. Speaker, to that 2-second speech we've just heard from the member opposite. What we've had a member stand up and say that this piece of fundamental legislation around families and children and how they're cared for in our society is about government priorities and better public services. Well, Mr. Speaker, we've heard a chorus of calls from the other side about how Labor wants to scrap the Families Commission and how this is supposedly a bad thing. But yes, it is Labor's ultimate aim to not have the Families Commission because we want to see a real and genuine commitment to child-centred policy in this country. We want to see something meaningful, something beyond rearranging some deck chairs. We have done some very detailed and evidence-based policy work around how it is that we can best serve children in this country. The policy that the Honourable Annette King did prior to the last election that has been picked up by my colleague Jacinda Ardern in her role is exceptional work that actually provides a real way forward for how it is that we can better serve the children of this country. This bill that we have before us does not do this. But nonetheless, Labor is supporting this bill to Select Committee, and we are supporting this bill to Select Committee because this is a conversation that needs to be had. We do need to have a real and genuine conversation about doing something real and about doing something meaningful to lift the standard for so many of the children and families in our country, and that's why we'll support it. Labor believes that families are important, that families are a crucial part of our society and a crucial unit of our society. This is where children, the future of our country, get their best start in life. The National Party has never been a fan of the Families Commission. We've seen this all over the place. If we go back to 2008, in the stoush in the 2008 election campaign, where John Key had to backtrack down from his off-the-key offer to scrap the Families Commission because he was afraid of losing a coalition partner. This has always been a history of compromise in relation to the Families Commission. Mr Dunn was reported to be disappointed in 2008. Well, with a one vote in the House now, we certainly can't be seeing that. That would be what you'd be called a disappointed majority, and that wouldn't be something that would be doing. National has repeatedly criticised the Commission since it was set up and has continued to do so. In 2008, when John Key did his backtrack on his off-the-cuff offer to scrap the Commission, he offered a shake-up, or a shake-up of the Commission, is what he described in 2008. Fast forward to 2012, in the legislation we're debating now, we're having a rebalancing. So rebalancing is already the 2012 version of a shake-up. Shows what happens in a second term of government when you've been there for a while. So what are we seeing under this legislation? Let's dig down beneath the rhetoric of members opposite talking about actually not talking about how important the Families Commission is. I mean, I think we've seen the importance that the party opposite puts on this bill and puts on the Family Commission by their contribution to this debate. But what we really are seeing here is funding for the Families Commissioner being slashed, and we're seeing the number of commissioners cut from 7 to 1. But not with any real plan to replace it. No real plan for how it is that we're going to provide for the children of our country, and no real plan for how it is we're going to guarantee that New Zealand children get the start in life that they deserve. Of the $32.48 million for funding that the Families Commission receives over 4 years, the government is going to rearrange the deck chairs with this money. They'd use a minimum of $14.2 million over those 4 years to set up the new Social Policy Evaluation and Research unit that I'll talk about in a while. My colleague Jacinda Ardern has talked extensively about the Family Status Report that will be produced within this funding and the reports that are currently there. And we're saying that a further $4 million over the 4 years will be redirected out of the Families Commission to fund the extra parenting and relationship education in schools of the Prime Minister's Youth Mental Health Programme. This is a rearranging of the deck chairs around supporting children, families and young people in this country. It is not new funding that has been heralded. Instead, it is reprioritisation for better public service, but without doing anything to fundamentally address the causes that are there. Labor has a number of questions and concerns around this bill, ones that we want to see addressed when it goes to Select Committee. And my colleagues, Dr. Rajiv Prasad and Jacinda Ardern, have already articulated many of those concerns and many of those questions. We really are concerned at the watering down or the gutting of the advocacy role of the Families Commissioner that we will see under this bill. What we are seeing is Clause 5 replacing Section 7 of the Principal Act, and the section that currently provides that the Commissioner's main function is to act as an advocate for the interests of families generally. The replacement section retains this as a main function of the Commission, the advocacy function that is, but it adds a new function. So what we're seeing is the Commission is going to be asked to do more work with less resource. It simply will not be able to fulfil its advocacy function that is prescribed under the current Act if this new piece of legislation goes through. We are going to see the families and their views and what is best for families and children in this country not being adequately advocated for. This week is a fantastic week for us also to be talking about the independent role of the Family Commissioner, with my colleague Sue Moroney's private members bill coming up for debate tomorrow. That what we have here is a very good example of how it is that the Families Commissioner's role has been tinkered with, it has been shaken up, and now it is being rebalanced to use the current language that instead of independent advice that is about advocating for the betterment of children and families in this country, we are seeing a commissioner that is increasingly asked to do the government's bidding. It is not for the commissioner to take a political position on whether or not paid parental leave is affordable. That is a matter for the politicians. It is the role of the commissioner to provide advice and advocacy on the impact of policies on children and families. And what we have seen is the way in which National deal with the Commissioner is going to be even intensified under this legislation, and we will see less of an advocacy role out of the Commissioner than we should be seeing. We also look at this new unit that is being set up to provide research advice. This is research advice, the Social Policy and Evaluation Unit within the Commission, with the predetermined annual budget of $3.55 million elsewhere. We've been told this is because National wants to provide us with evidence-based policies. That is something I commend. I think that is a great thing. But this capacity should have been used before. It theoretically exists within existing ministries and departments and should be there. In reality, what we are seeing is a watering down of the advice that can be offered, the kind of evidence base that we can get on policy. What we're going to see is a Families Commissioner who will be asked to do research into what the government dictates rather than issues that the Commissioner sees as important for advocating the betterment of children and families. Poverty, literacy, paid parental leave, family violence, these won't be choices that the Commissioner can make, but instead will be directed by government. Currently what happens is that the Commissioner uses a range of peer reviewers from a number of our universities and other research centres and independent researchers. Under this new piece of legislation, that advice will be limited to 4 people. We have some very clever and talented social policy and social science academics in this country, but I can't think of 4 of them that can provide advice right across the whole plethora. Mr Speaker, Labor has serious questions about this bill and we need to see them answered at Select Committee. Thank you.
David Bennett.